So, I've decided to pursue a career as a professional game developer with zero experience, zero talent or skill, zero connections in the industry, and frankly, zero clue of what the hell I'm doing. Okay, so that's not entirely true. Let me explain. Remember earlier in the video when I was like, zero experience? Well, technically, that was a lie. Wow, I'm only 20 seconds into my first video and I'm already lying for clout. At least I know what my second video is gonna be. I'm so sorry. Wait, I'm so sorry. To be honest, I've sorta dabbled in some of this stuff before, but not in any real way. It's kind of like saying I have experience as an author because I've written a grocery shopping list. This just says, buy food, me hungry. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked here. I thought I'd tell you a little bit about myself, about who I am, why I'm doing this, and what I hope to accomplish. So, first things first. My name is Alex. I'm old. Okay, I'm not that old, but let's just say I'm closer to looking like Santa than believing in Santa. Da, 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 da. It's the one and only SANTA. I have a wife and a daughter, and I work for a large pharmaceutical company in Copenhagen, Denmark. That's this little spot right here. Oh yeah, and I'm Danish. And part Lebanese, and my wife is South African, which makes my daughter, look, it's a whole thing. I also used to be a musician. That's me right there. But as you can imagine, in between my family and my very demanding career, I don't have much time for hobbies or friends or having a life. So I figured, what better time to start a new career? Okay, honestly, the timing could be better, but I think I've just reached a point in my life where I feel like I need to really try to do this thing for real. It's something I've thought about for a very long time, and it's something I've always wanted to do, but I just never went all in on it. Incidentally, this is kind of the same thing that happened in my music career, and I just don't want to spend the rest of my life wondering, what if? So, where did my quest to become a game developer actually start? Well, it all began a long time ago in a galaxy not so far away. Growing up, I was a huge Star Wars fan. And given that I was also an avid gamer, yes, I was popular, shut up. One of the biggest events in my entire childhood was the release of Jedi Outcast, and its quasi-sequel Jedi Academy as well. This was the first time you were able to really play as a Jedi, you know, wielding a lightsaber and using the Force. And yeah, I'd played the first Jedi Knight and even Dark Forces before that. I told you, old. But honestly, nothing came close to how this game made me feel. It was so good, I even played multiplayer. And that's not me usually. Outside of playing Counter-Strike with a few friends, or duking it out in Tekken 3, or teaming up with a buddy to take on 6 AIs at 200% difficulty in Heroes of Might and Magic 3, shout out to anyone who knows what I'm talking about. I never cared much about multiplayer at all. But Jedi Outcast was just so good. I just wanted to experience even more of it. And so here is where my game dev journey began. You see, I was still a kid, and I didn't really have much of an understanding about how games or levels for games were made. But every now and then, I'd join a server and it would download a new map, one that wasn't in the game already. And I don't think I really knew where these levels were coming from or gave it much thought, honestly. They were just extra maps and it was cool. Until one day I came across a level that had the words JediOutcastMaps.com written on the wall. I furiously typed that address into the search bar, and as I hit enter, I was met with... well, not this. You have to remember, this was like 20 years ago. No, back then it wasn't some weird Polish site about anatomy or whatever. No, it was like a hub for content for the game. And not just multiplayer maps. They had character models, reskins, UI elements, even whole new single player maps with new stories, cutscenes, voice actors, and so on. It was like heaven to me. And I very quickly realized that this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to make new experiences, new single-player stories that were fully fleshed out with characters and new worlds and so on. So I downloaded GTK Radiant and partnered up with my cousin, who was like my best friend and equally as big a nerd as I was, and we started learning how to design levels and everything else that went along with that. And let me tell you, we were awful at it. I mean, don't get me wrong, we made some pretty cool stuff. I even made a map that placed like 4th in a competition, and the winner of that competition went on to work for Raven Software that made the game itself, so that was super cool for me at the time. But the problem was scope. You see, we'd envision these humongous projects that had like a dozen characters and hundreds of lines of dialogue and hours worth of content, and it was just completely impossible for the two of us to get anywhere near being done with even 10% of it. So eventually we'd get overwhelmed by the size of the project and scrap it. And then we'd start a new one that was just as big.
You guys are so smart.
Needless to say, we never really got anywhere with any of it, and it all kind of fizzled out as we got older and we started not having as much time as before to work on it. And I went through a lot in my life in the intervening years. But then, over a decade later, I found myself with some time off. Don't worry, I'm fine. And I dug up all the old files from back then, and then it hit me. Why not try to make my own game? So I did some research, and threw myself into it without doing any planning or considering the scope of the project I started working on. So I failed. Again. Now at this point you might be thinking, why the hell do you keep doing this to yourself? Or more importantly, is there a point to all this? And yeah, there is. The point is that for whatever reason, I wasn't truly ready to do this before. All the lessons that I needed to learn, all the maturity and insight I needed to gain, none of that was there yet. I just had this thing that I liked to do, so I did it. But when it got harder or it wasn't as fun anymore, then I stopped doing it. And so I got nowhere. It took me until now to actually be ready to go at it the way I need to. And that's okay. So even though there's a part of me that's beating myself up over not having done this like a decade or 2 decades ago, I have to remind myself that there's a reason it didn't work out, and that at least now I know what I have to do. Wait, why is this sounding like a Gary Vee video all of a sudden? Let's move on. In fact, I think now is the perfect time to hear a word from today's sponsor. I don't have a sponsor. So what kind of games am I going to be working on? Well, I, of course, like any other budding game developer out there, have a dream game, or in my case 2 dream games, that I really want to work on. But one of the main lessons I've learned throughout all of this is to start small. So my first project is going to be something I can release fairly quickly just to get something out there. Now, I can't show you any footage of the game yet. I'm not trying to be mysterious, it just doesn't exist yet. But here's a little sample of what the reference board for that game looks like.
Chicken.
It'll all make sense soon, don't worry. I plan on doing a series of game devlogs for each project I'm working on, so you can follow along and see how I'm doing in all of this. As far as learning how to actually do this stuff, I've been following some of GameDev.tv's courses on Udemy? Whatever. They're sometimes listed at these extremely outrageous prices, but they have them on sale almost constantly. So if you're thinking of doing one, I'd wait until the price drops to about $15 to $20. I especially recommend the Blender character creation for video games design and the complete C# Unity game developer 3D courses if you want to make 3D games in Unity. The courses are super helpful and very easy to follow along with, except this one part by Gary. Fuck you and your pathfinding, Gary. Who's petty now, huh? I'm just kidding, he's fine. Anyway, I think that about sums it up for now. It's been a long journey, and at this point a long video. Jesus Christ, are you guys still watching this? Well, if you are, feel free to leave a like and subscribe if you want to see some actual game deving at some point instead of me giving motivational speeches about a Star Wars game I liked as a kid. And if anyone watching this has their own story to share about game deving, or even Star Wars, honestly, I'd love to see them in the comments, or maybe leave a link to your own video. As for me, there's finally nothing standing in the way of me achieving my dream of becoming a professional game developer. Except for the fact that I don't have a computer.